What's going on, guys? Matthew Moniz here, and today we're talking about me switching to a new laptop. I have the Microsoft Surface Book 2. I've been using it for 7 months. It's been a fantastic device, but the one major problem I have with it is the fact that it's using a U-Series processor. The U-Series processor is great for battery life. It's powerful than it's ever been before, but when it comes to editing 4K video, it just can't keep up. Well, I have the new laptop I'm switching to right here, and I'm gonna tell you why I'm switching to it by comparing it to the Dell XPS 15. Now, you'd think most 4K content creators would go for the Dell XPS 15 because of its super light, portable form factor. Well, this laptop has so many fingerprints on it. Who would do this to me? Who? Hold on, I got another one over here. Let's just cover that up. Oh, Jesus Christ, you just can't win. Naturally, before the Surface Book 2, the Dell XPS 15 was my main laptop, and I was gonna come back to it, especially now that I got an i9. It was fully upgraded. You could put 32 gigabytes of RAM, but the problem is, an i9 in a chassis this thin just gets way too hot. Dell needs to fix their cooling solution on the XPS line. The next thing I found out was the Razer Blade 15. This is where things got interesting. It is 4.5 pounds, so it's slightly lighter than the Dell XPS 15, but slightly heavier than the Surface Book 2, but it has a very similar port setup. On the left-hand side, you have 2 USB 3.0 ports, your power connector, audio jack. On the other side, you have your HDMI port, a Noble lock, another USB 3.0 port, and a USB Type-C Thunderbolt 3 port if you want to hook up an external GPU. The only thing that I don't like about this laptop is the fact you don't get an SD card slot, which you do on the other 2 devices. Inside, everything is upgradable except for the CPU and GPU, so if I want to one day, I can swap out that hard drive, put in something faster or maybe something bigger. If I want to put this thing with 32 gigabytes of RAM, I have that option as well. Just like the other 2. Well, not the Surface Book. You can't upgrade anything inside of that. Everything is soldered onto the motherboard. The next big thing was the display. The Surface Book 2 was perfect because it had a 3:2 aspect ratio for that vertical space and a very color accurate screen. Same with the Dell XPS 15, but the problem was you couldn't get a Razer Blade with a 4K display until recently. Now, here's the thing that I discovered about that 4K display. It's 60 Hertz, same color accuracy as the Dell XPS 15, but it's paired with a GTX 1070, whereas the other laptop, the 1080p version, you can get it in 2 flavors, either 60 Hertz or 144 Hertz. The 60 Hertz is hot garbage. The 144 Hertz has a 98% color accurate screen. So it's not perfect, but if you're a YouTuber who travels a lot and who games like myself, it's still good enough to color correct content and game at the same time, which is super important to me. Now, obviously, if you're a colorist, a specialist, some sort of crazy hardcore person who's working on the latest Avengers movie, then you're probably gonna wanna get the 4K version of this or the Dell XPS 15. Now I'm gonna calm it down a little notch because I wanna talk about performance, and this is what made me really settle on the Razer Blade 15. And a lot of you are probably thinking, Matt, you went for the 4K model because you're gonna be doing color correction. That's incorrect. I'm taking the 4K out of here. I went for the 1080p version, 144 Hz version, because it comes with the GTX 1060. I did some very interesting tests. I did a render test, rendering a bunch of different files, and on the Razer Blade 15 1060, I was able to render that file in 24 minutes. With the Razer Blade 15 4K 60 Hz 1070, it took 27 minutes. And check this out. This is what surprised me the most, and I'm sure it has something to do with CUDA cores. The Dell XPS 15, which is fully loaded with an i9 and a GTX 1050 Ti, took 32 minutes to render that file. And again, I did these tests more than once to make sure I wasn't missing anything. The next crazy thing is when it came to gaming itself, the Razer Blade 15 1060 actually produced better frame rates than the 1070 model. I was getting higher frame rates. It's just overall a better experience, especially when you compare it with a 144 Hz display. I think, and this is just a theory, is that the Razer Blade 15, because the GTX 1060 Max-Q has a lower TDP between 60 and 70, not as much heat is produced, therefore the CPU and GPU can run at higher speeds a lot longer than the 1070. And this came true when I was monitoring resources while rendering a file. The 1070 was power throttling a lot more than the 1060. And this is the interesting thing as well. These laptops don't thermal throttle, but they do power throttle. So that means the CPU never surpasses 70 to 80 degrees Celsius. Now, some of you may not like that. Some of you are saying, you know what? I want no power throttling. I want my CPU temps to be higher. I want my turbos to boost even faster. And if you run benchmarks, none of these laptops will pass 2.7 gigahertz of turbo boosts. But once you start using them in real life experiences like playing games or rendering files, the GTX 1060 version of this always stayed at 3.8 gigahertz, which is the top speed for an i7-8750H. So I am super impressed what Razer has done for cooling in this laptop. Now I know this sounds like a lot of geek talk, but the bottom line is I'm all about longevity. I'm all about having a laptop that stays coolest the longest. The Dell XPS 15 is a hot mess. The 1070 version of this is good, but it's not perfect because the chassis is a little bit too small for it. If you're gonna buy the Razer Blade, settle for the 1060 instead. It is the perfect solution, and it's the perfect one that will keep things cool and run the longest. So that pretty much wraps up the reasons why I'm switching to the Razer Blade 15. This has everything I want for a portable laptop to edit my videos, and most importantly, play video games. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Are you impressed with this laptop? If you want to discuss more about it, feel free to hit me up on Discord. If you want to see some behind the scenes, follow me on Instagram. If you're new to the channel, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.